Our first item of business is our public comment period. This is a time where we allow anyone who wishes to address the board 2 minutes to speak regarding any subject that's important to them that they feel that we should hear about. So I'll typically ask 3 times if there's anybody that wishes to address the board. That was once. Anybody wish to address the board under the public comment period? Anyone wish to address the board under the public comment period? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment period and go to item 3.1, which is the approval of the county board minutes for November 28th, 2017.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kavesi, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to approve the county board minutes as written. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. We have consent comments and the approval of agenda. Mr. Fritz?
I'll just have one comment at the end.
Okay.
I'm okay. Nothing.
Okay. Commissioner Ward?
Just one brief comment, please.
Commissioner Olson?
I'm just going to make a comment when we get to 5.12.
You'll remember that one, Mr. Fritz, correct?
5.1 you said? 1.2.
Commissioner Jacob?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Assistant County Attorney Stephanie Nuttall?
Nothing.
Okay. Very good. Consent business, excuse me, approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to approve the agenda as written. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Mr. Fritz?
Well, I'll read the consent business into the record. Committee recommendations 5.1, approve conditional use permit for Michael and Nicole Mades to allow a manufactured home in addition to a primary dwelling for occupants that provide part-time farm help. 5.2, approve conditional use permit for Charles Skemp to allow a single-family dwelling on greater than 12% slopes and within 300 feet of the top of the bluff within the Mississippi River Bluffs zoning classification. Department recommendations, 5.3, approve radiological emergency preparedness grant agreement. 5.4, accept certificate of performance and authorize final payment for CP 85-1707-112. 5.5, approve member to the Winona County Workforce Development Board. 5.6, approve Winona County Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Plan for the release of funds for the AAS program. 5.7, approve 2018 County Board meeting schedule. 5.8, approve resolution for prosecutorial crime victim service 2017 to 2019 grant agreement. 5.9, approve LG 240B application to conduct excluded bingo Immaculate Conception Catholic Church. 5.10, approve grant contract for early and periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment administrative services to medical assistance eligible children birth through 20 years of age. 5.11, approve elected officials retirees 2018 benefits resolution. Item 5.12, approve resolution for 2018 sheriff's uniform allowance.
And just my comment on that was that I had asked Ken and Maureen today if this was looked at when they did the comparable for their salaries, and apparently it wasn't. And in a little bit of information they could pull up today, we might be on the higher than average end of that. So if we were looking at averages for salaries and benefits and uniform allowances, some don't, some are less. So just want to make comments on that.
Thank you, Greg.
5.13, authorize disposal of excess furniture and equipment. 5.14, confirm payment of disbursements. That concludes the consent agenda.
Do we have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Olson to approve the consent business as presented. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Under general business, item 6.1, to conduct a public hearing on the 2018 budget and 2018 fee schedule. We don't. Do we have a resolution here for the levy?
No, that doesn't happen until the 27th.
Till that next meeting, okay. So do we have a motion to open a public hearing regarding input for the 2018 budget and fee schedule?
So, second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to open the public hearing to receive input on the 2018 budget and fee schedule. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Accordingly, we would ask if there are anyone from the public that wishes to address the board regarding the proposed budget and fee schedule. Now would be a good time.
Did we have anybody sign in? No, nobody signed in.
Do you have any comments that
Yeah.
you would like to make, Mr. Moga or Mr. Fritz?
No?
Okay. Was that you,
Yeah.
Commissioner
No.
Jacob?
No.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Commissioner Ward?
That's what I was going to ask. Did we receive any comments from any members of the public on our fees or anything? Okay. And not to say that sometimes in the past, things have come up to our attention, throughout the year, and the fees can be adjusted.
Oh, yeah.
During the year if we find something that was overlooked or needs to be changed.
Again, I'll ask one last time. Anyone wish to address the board regarding the 2018 fee schedule and budget? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Olson to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Next item is 6.2, receive monthly finance and budget updates for October 2017. And one quick question before we get into that, Mr. Moga. This does not reflect the settlement, is that correct, for October?
This does not for October.
Okay.
It'll be in the November settlement.
Okay, very good, thanks.
I'll read through the numbers for September. Beginning cash, September was 13.4. Actual revenues were 307,000. Actual expenses were 1.6. Ending cash was 12.1 in the general fund. Actually, I'm reading September, that's reading October. This is October. Sorry about that. Starting cash was 12.1. Actual revenues were 535,000, and the actual expenses were $1.2 million. Ending cash was 11.3. For the whole year for the general fund, we started out with beginning cash of 15.4 million. Actual revenues are 10.3, and actual expenses are 14.4. Ending cash is 11.3. The variance this year in the general fund compared to last year, this year is a negative $4.4 million compared to negative 4.7. Overall, the total for all the funds that are being presented here, negative 7.2 compared to a negative 7.4. And I wanted to point out that the Community Services Fund is actually running a $2.8 million deficit at this point. Settlement will help that, but I think that this fund will be actually in a negative at the end of the year.
Would you estimate by about $1.5 million?
I don't think it's going to be that much. I was going to say it was going to be under $1 million.
Really?
But we'll have to see what type of expenses come in for the last 2 months of December.
Okay. Well, that would be nice, yeah.
It would be nice. I was, right now, looking at it, I would say it would be under the $1 million, but I don't know if, usually the last couple of weeks, people are also sending in a lot of bills.
What is the settlement for community services for second half?
Their levy is right around 5, with levy, and that includes CPA, is right around $5 million.
Okay.
So it'd be half of that.
Half of that, so 2.5, okay,
And
good.
are we tracking what program is causing the biggest amount of fluctuation? Can we pinpoint what we need to really concentrate and look at as far as changing the way we're doing business?
One area that I would say that's really tracking high is the out-of-home placements.
Okay.
And I think that's been kind of been known for a while that the out-of-home placements is one of the areas that's tracking.
But you can pull up specific figures related to that, and so we can look at.
Yep.
Actually, some of those figures were in the TNT handout, And then we have more detailed
More
figures if we
detail.
need them, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then if we go over to the summary cash flow, cash started out at 21 million. Actual revenues were 26.8, and actual expenses were 33.9. Ending cash was 13.9. You'll see those same variants.
Yeah,
People can't see what we're talking about.
yeah,
We ended up putting this on the board.
yeah, because it's kind of small to,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
For,
all right.
For 6 months or more.
Okay.
And then if we want to talk about the summary budget, at this point, we're at 83% of the budget, and looking at human services expenses are at 91%. I also did want to point out that interest at this point, we budgeted $115,000. We actually have earned $141 at this point, which is actually a good thing. But the other thing is, this number doesn't really compare to, if you look back a few years, this number used to be in the, we had about $1 million of interest years ago, probably, 5, 7 years ago. That number was closer to $1 million now.
The good old days.
That all has to do with kind of the interest rate or that one.
Just say some of us are old enough to remember the good old days.
Does anybody have any questions on these documents? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. We'll move on now to 6.3, discuss and/or appoint citizen advisory committee volunteers. This is the time we reserve each year to make appointments for committees that will be sitting in January. Last year, I had the privilege of making some appointments. Some of them are done by the chair, and others are done by the board. For the upcoming year, Commissioner Ward, she will be the chair, and accordingly, she will have, the option with regard to making of appointments for this next calendar year for Board of Adjustment and for Planning Commission. I believe that's it. Is that correct?
Just planning commission.
Just planning. I'm
Planning,
sorry.
That's the one
Okay.
that's, yeah,
Okay.
by statute.
Yeah, well, in the event that Board of Adjustment last year came up with a 2-2 determination of who they were going to send to the Planning Commission, because they didn't have their fifth person there, if that happens again, then it's the chair of the county board.
Right, right. As a matter of fact, so if I recall, what I did last year was I made the appointment absent there being any further action to the contrary, I guess. And since it was 2-2, there wasn't any action. Is that how that worked out? Something like that?
Actually, I think it goes back another year to when Marie was chair, I think, wasn't it, the 2-2? And then Ms. Hales was, because of the 2-2, Ms. Hales was, and then it was, there was some discussion if that was a 2-year appointment or a 1-year appointment.
Regardless of what happened, first
Yeah.
priority is Board of Adjustment appoints their own liaison to the Planning Commission.
Yes. Yep.
If they come up with a tie, then it becomes.
Then we
a-
Right.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Commissioner Ward.
I did have a question, looking at a couple pieces of information that we got, I think are a little bit in conflict as to who needs to be reappointed and who's eligible. And then I did have a question about our residency policy. And the residency policy was included in our packet. And what I'm referring to is on page, of our board packet, page 390. And under that bold headline, residency requirements. So am I interpreting this to say, it says, in absence of specific legislation required to the contrary, county board appointees to advisory committees are required to forfeit the appointment upon failure to maintain a principal residence within Winona County. So is that all our committees? They have to be Winona County residents?
Can I?
Yeah, and I asked
Sure.
you, and I
I sent you an email.
I left home
Did you
before
get,
I got
okay.
that, yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's basically written so that unless there's some other county policy or county, bylaws or the ordinance, the zoning ordinance, for instance, or something like that that would have a conflict, that would have to be a resident. In the case of some committees, like the Community Advisory Committee, we have in the bylaws, it has a couple positions that are representatives of service organizations or of local partners. In those cases, it was intended that they be local organizations, but not necessarily the representative would have to live in town. And that's actually stated in the bylaws that for that particular committee that were adopted by the board. So in that case, I would suggest that that falls under legislation. So in that case, those two positions would not have to be in the county, although they'd have to represent service agencies from the county, which they do.
Okay, all right.
I don't know of anybody on another committee that, that falls into that category, but.
All right. So that makes good
Yeah,
sense.
there was one address here that was out of county.
Yeah, was it on the Community Advisory?
Community
Yeah.
Service
Community
Advisory,
Services, yeah, right, right.
Yep.
That's the one I'm referring to.
But that
Represents
person,
the FCC.
yeah, works for the organization that's based in Winona County. Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification.
So essentially, we probably look at Board of Adjustment first, and we have 2 vacancies with 4 applications. We can reappoint Larry Graydon and Philip Schwantz, and new applicants are Amy Cordry and Don Evanson. I think what we had done in the past, and please, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but without a compelling reason, we normally would reappoint. If that's correct?
Past
Okay.
practice.
So,
But here's again where I'm finding, and maybe I'm just reading this wrong. So we got a chart from administration dated 11/30, and I'm questioning. And please look at this, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong. It had the people
Page are
who.
you on?
It wasn't in the packet. It was a email that was sent out at the end of November, and they had lines highlighted. But so if this person was appointed in 2014,
and 16.
so 14 and 15, 16 and 17. Okay,
Yeah.
so that one.
Yeah,
But now this
18.
one, okay, but this
Oh, yeah, that
one,
makes sense too.
but this one was appointed in 16.
2 years
So,
ago.
so,
Oh, 16, 17. Doing 18.
but was it okay? And I guess you're appointed. Okay, so maybe
Yeah.
we made the appointment in 15, but it took effect in the 16.
Right.
Okay, so
Right. So those are correct.
we are good on those.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. And we'll follow through with the rest of these because I want to make sure.
Do we have a motion with respect to Board of Adjustment?
So move.
So move what?
To reappoint Larry Graydon and Phil Schwantz.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Kovesi, to reappoint Larry Graydon and Mr. Philip Schwantz to the Board of Adjustment for a 2-year term. Any questions? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Community Services Advisory Committee, we have 3 vacancies. We've received 3 applications. One, which would be the reappointment of Leah Morgan. And we have the 2 new applicants are Larry Goodland and Maggie Mojeski. Any discussion or motion?
I move to appoint Leah Morgan, Larry Goodland, and Maggie Majeski.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob to reappoint Leah Morgan and to appoint Larry Goodland and Maggie Majeski to the Community Services Advisory Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Extension, we have 2 vacancies, but we've received no applications, so we would re-advertise for those.
Yeah.
And I was going to go right from there to the EDA, which has 1 vacancy. What's everyone laughing about? I'm kidding. Under the EDA, we have 1 vacancy, and we've received 2 applications. The one is for Richard McCroot. That would be a reappointment, and we do have a new application from Don Evanson. But I think that we're kind of limited to 1 board or commission, so I imagine we would probably go with, well, It's up to you.
I move to reappoint Richard Michaud.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to appoint Mr. Richard Mickert, reappoint Mr. Mickert to the Economic Development Authority for a 2-year term. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Extension jumped ahead and took care of that one. Parks and Environmental, we have 4 vacancies and we have 2 applications. We have no reappointments, and we do have 2 new applicants, Christine Dieterman and Mr. Don Evanson. I think this goes back to what you just mentioned on the previous item. So entertain a motion.
Just a question, don't we, isn't the policy not to serve on more than one
That's right.
committee?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. And we just did entertain that for Economic Development Authority. too.
John would be on planning commission automatically serving his second year of.
Right, so he's,
Yeah.
He just threw his name in there?
He wants to serve on more than one committee, so he told me, and I told him, well, one committee, that's the deal, so. I'll move,
Sent an email.
Yeah, he sent an
Yes.
email.
Saying that
Explaining
planning
his-
commission was his first choice, so.
Okay. So what we're looking for is a motion to appoint Kristen Dieterman.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to appoint Kristen Dieterman to the Parks and Environmental Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. We have the Planning Commission with 4 vacancies.
Excuse me,
Personnel.
are we gonna re-advertise for that Parks and, because we still have one
Yes,
vacancy?
we should re-advertise
Yeah.
for that. And then I'm going to go right on to the next one, which is Personnel Board of Appeals. We have one
Cut you off, sir.
vacancy, and we've received 2 applications. We should be looking at the reappointment of Mr. Wayne Valentine. And again, I think we've talked about Mr. Evanson's application. So looking for a motion.
So moved?
Second,
We have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Jacob, to reappoint Mr. Wayne Valentine to the Personnel Board of Appeals. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Okay, now we'll go to the Planning Commission. There are 4 vacancies. Have received 8 applications for reappointment. We have Sherry Hales, Harley Herber, and Chris Meyer. New applications are from Robert Brecky, Mary Clark, Amy Cordry, Larry Graydon, and Dwayne Ward. Commissioner Ward.
Well, this one, again, I'm referring to my 11:30 chart here.
Sure.
Arlie Herber, by my chart, was appointed in 2014, so 14 to 15, 15 to 16, so
So, he
If
did 2014 and 15. Hold on, no. I think what we're looking at is the even numbered ones are due. Because these are 18 appointments, not 17 appointments. They're actually,
right.
Calendar year
right.
2018
But
appointments.
if he was appointed in 14, so he served 14 and 15.
Oh, yeah.
And 15 and 16, so it should,
no.
15 twice.
14, 15, 16, 17,
okay.
18.
All right.
So he's
But now,
reappointed.
Chris Myers, she was appointed in 2016.
16, 17,
17.
18, 19. It's the same with,
17,
yeah,
2 years.
16,
Okay,
17.
okay, all right.
The appointments for 18. So
Okay, all right.
2-year term. She's appointed in 16 to serve in 16 and 17.
Okay, all
And so
right.
she's doing 18.
18, all right. Yeah, okay, so we agree on that.
Yeah,
One of the issues I have with a chart like this is they're assuming, and staff assumed, that they would serve the full 6 years. And that's not necessarily a correct assumption. So I'm sorry, it confuses me a little.
right, okay.
All right, but now, the Cherie Hales position would be the Board of Adjustment person, so we wouldn't be reappointing her,
correct.
because she is the Board of Adjustment liaison. So that, we would not reappoint that person, we would wait for the
But
Board
that
of
doesn't
Adjustment.
make another vacancy, that's just.
No,
That's
no.
just the liaison that's.
Right.
the
fills.
vacancy for the
Board of Adjustment, so it's not an individual, it should just be a open spot.
So I believe what I did last year was I
So
appointed.
there is only one.
There is only
I
one
appointed
open.
Sheree Hales from the Board of Adjustment to be the liaison to the Planning Commission. absent any further action by the Board of Adjustment, and there was no further action. I think the concern is that if, depending on what you do with the Board of Adjustment, if you don't have a placeholder there until further action is taken, you may end up with no liaison for a while. Because I think somebody goes winter somewhere else maybe.
Well, they, do we know, Kate Qualley's here, do we know, will the Board of Adjustment be meeting in December? Not as any petitions? Okay, so they could, knowing what we're doing here tonight, they could hold a meeting to select a liaison.
If somebody's not away for the winter.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a 2-2 vote problem. I'm not guessing
Yeah.
it's a 2-2,
No,
I'm just
right,
saying.
right. It could be, but I don't know that for a fact or anything that anybody goes anywhere or anything.
Now, to your call, I mean,
Right.
what I was just basically saying is it might be wise to have a placeholder until or unless they determine to act. But that's your call. I think, but.
Yeah, because technically the Planning Commission isn't appointed until January of 2018.
Right.
And this is December,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
okay. So technically, we agree that there's only really one open spot with Joy Ewing electing not to file for reappointment? Are we in agreement to that? Mm-hmm. There is just one.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to discuss?
What's your position?
Well, it's advisement of the
Okay.
Board of Commission, it's
Okay.
advisement of the planning department, it's advisement from, the public,
Sure. Okay.
everybody, so advise.
So essentially, what I believe you're saying is that there would be would it be the reappointment of Cherie Hales, Arlie Herber, and Chris Meyer? Is that what you would be doing?
The reappointment of the Board of Adjustment representative.
Yeah, I
Right.
wouldn't put a name in that, I would say the Board of Adjustment still needs to define who that person is.
Was Cherie Hales the Board of Adjustment liaison starting this year, 2000?
Yes.
So is that not a 2-year term like everybody else's 2-year terms? Sorry. So I mean, that may not even be a reappointment position, is
Okay.
what I'm saying. I don't know.
Well,
Does the Board of Adjustment elect a liaison every year? I think in the past it's been every 2 years. But
Every year.
oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie?
So
Yes, no.
I've been poking through the zoning ordinance, and what it says in here is, I'll find it. One member of the Board of Adjustment shall also be a member of the Planning Commission. The way that that's worked in the past is we've had the Board of Adjustment make a recommendation to the chair for an appointment, but it doesn't have to work that way.
And is that annually or term?
It doesn't specify.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
The board's
That-
done it annually, though.
Annually,
We've
yeah.
done it annually, yeah.
Okay.
At least since I've been here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Board of Adjustment has a
spot.
representative position and it's open until they meet.
Yes. Right.
Again, though, the only issue that concerns me is if somebody's gone for vacation for the whole winter, you may be without a person on the planning commission for 2, 3, 4 months. Possibly. I'm not sure if that's the case. I think it might have been the case because I don't think they made an appointment this last year. Or they were 2-2 or whatever. And 2-2 maybe because of scheduling and vacation.
It feels like the right thing to do is to allow the Board of Adjustment to meet prior to the county board trying to fill that position because, and you're telling somebody you're going to be the liaison.
Right.
I guess we do have 2 people here that have filled out application for the Planning Commission. We had an application both from Larry Graydon and from Cherie Hales. They're both on.
Okay.
Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So,
Okay. So leave it in their hands?
well,
I think that's
Okay.
the way
if
I've
they
always
can't-
interpreted
If they
it.
can't decide in the first meeting, then it's our obligation.
Right.
then it's the county board's obligation to fill that.
All right. So then there's one appointment.
One open.
Yeah,
Yep.
one spot.
Right.
Right. And under the new applications, Larry Graydon really is not available to be considered because he's already serving on the Board of Adjustment.
But there was some confusion the last go-around
Yes.
about, did that person need to fill out the planning, and put planning commission down? And I think we need to clarify our process there
Okay.
for future.
Commissioner Olson.
So I would just, if you ask for recommendations, I would recommend Amy Cordry. If for no other reason, then we have a female board member getting off, and we would keep the gender differences on there, maybe.
Anybody else?
Did you want the floor, Commissioner?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Kovesi.
Yeah. I didn't hear from any other members of the public, but I did hear about any other appointments, but I did have several recommendations from the members of the public in favor of Amy Cordry also.
Commissioner Ward.
Well, if we want to go down that, yes, I've had people recommend different people. I think by our zoning ordinance, and I know attorney could pull up the exact words, but I think there's criteria that we do recommend using, geographic representation, a strong background in agriculture. Is it stated strong background in agriculture? Because again, it's no secret, I'm firmly rooted in agriculture and feel that that is a high criteria for, planning and
The
zoning.
exact wording.
Yeah, what is the exact
It
wording?
says, given the importance of having a planning commission with a geographically diverse membership and a solid grounding in agriculture, the
Solid
board chair
grounding.
should strive to accomplish this in appointments to the planning commission.
Okay, solid grounding. Okay. And I did have conversations with all of them up to this point. I had a very brief email correspondence with the planning director, and I intend to, maybe have a little more conversation and do some more research as to how to make that board work the best.
Yeah, and Ms. Cordry is a small farm owner-operator, so she has a grounding in, is that the word grounding? That's a good word for agriculture?
I know both Mark Clark and Dwayne Wirt are both actively farming. Dwayne worked in dairy held the family farm year before last.
I've received a number of calls in support of Ms. Cordry as well. So, rolls it back to you.
I haven't finished doing my homework yet.
Oh, you're not ready to make an appointment?
No, I am not ready to make an appointment at this time. So stay tuned.
So I guess I'd just ask how you intend to handle it. Did you want to just simply put a letter on the next agenda about your appointment, or?
Well, we have to officially make the appointment in January, so the first meeting in January.
Oh, well,
And we meet January,
we've actually done this so that we can have the person seated in January, first meeting.
right, but we have a meeting, what's the
Second.
first meeting, January 2nd?
I think it's the second.
Yeah, for some reason,
Okay.
don't we have to meet on the 2nd?
We have because of that
State law.
state
The
law.
law.
It's in the
Law.
calendar, but I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it's the
the
second.
law.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
and that'll give plenty of time, because the planning commission doesn't meet until the third Thursday.
Okay.
So that would still give anybody equal.
So you'd officially like to defer at this point then?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Next, we have the Stockton, Rolling Stone, Minnesota City Watershed. There are 2 vacancies. We have 1 application, and that is for the reappointment of Kevin Northhouse.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kovesi, to reappoint Kevin Northhouse to the Stockton, Rolling Stone, Minnesota City Watershed. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. And so that takes care of our appointments for this evening. The next item is the Discuss County Board appointments to 2018 boards and commissions. Do you want to just go through them one by one, or do we want to do it by edit? Or there might be somebody wanting to change, or, I mean, we can do it either way, whatever you prefer.
If it reduces any effort or confusion, I'd like to stay on the same committees I've served on.
So would I.
So would I.
Oh,
I'm comfortable with where I'm at.
Commissioner Kovesi,
I'm fine where I am.
would it be reasonable to conclude that we wish to reappoint each board member to the current boards and commissions and committees that the
So moved.
folks are at?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kovesi, to reappoint members of the county board to the boards and committees pursuant to the listing that was presented this evening. All those.
Oh, okay. I do have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Ward.
I do have a question. I know CJCC has numerous subcommittees, and, you know, Commissioner Kovesi and yourselves can't possibly cover all those, but is there something in their bylaws that, their rules of operation that prohibit more of us being involved in that?
No, as a matter of fact, if somebody cannot make a meeting, they would prefer that somebody is sent by proxy. Okay.
But I mean, like all the subcommittees that they have.
You could, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kovesi.
No, I have been attending this. There's the work group for the Committee on Diversity. It meets at 8 o'clock in the morning, the first Wednesday of one of the Wednesdays of the month. The Juvenile Justice meets usually on a Thursday, and the Jail and Jail Alternatives usually meets on a Wednesday, I think. So I have been able to cover those. And in addition, there have been meetings for the grant, to monitor the grant activities, and I've been attending those also. Anyone is welcome to attend those.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All those,
Isn't anyone welcome shy of a quorum?
Well, yes, shy of a quorum.
So if you two are the appointed,
No, I attend unless.
I'm her alternate.
I defer to Jim.
So if she's not able to make it, I can represent her as her proxy.
Right.
But if she's been very diligent, I think I've only covered you once or twice.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
fits, yeah, it's good.
So
They
look,
meet at
you-
lunch.
you
Mr. Ward seems to be asking if she can attend those meetings.
Well, there's a lot going on, and with our jail study and all this future going forward with programming and everything in the criminal justice thing,
Sure.
I mean, to not have that firsthand information
Right.
is sometimes, you know, at a loss, I guess. And as in the previous, in the past, you can attend a meeting,
Sure.
you can be a fly on the wall.
Right.
Can't say anything, you can't participate, but you can be a fly on the wall. And that doesn't create a
Oh, and for instance, if I were to go to a meeting where Commissioner Kovesi is the representative, I'm the fly on the wall too.
Right.
You know, I
Yeah,
certainly-
the main,
Yeah.
and as is on any of our
Sure.
committees. Yes.
So were you interested in going to some committee meetings, Stephen? Okay. Then you wouldn't have a problem with open meeting.
No.
With just the two of you.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Jacob?
Do you get those dates? Because after the main meeting in them. I'll check with her later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was checking with her about dates, because the work groups don't appear the dates don't appear
On our
calendar.
calendar.
Any other questions regarding the appointments that we've just talked about? All those in favor?
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Ward?
Our AMC delegates. All commissioners have a committee, but we had put Beth Wilms. And I don't know if we're going to replace Beth with the new, if that's something that,
I think that would be advisable.
okay, if she's willing and able.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we need to correct that.
Right.
And so that is
Heather Johnson.
Johnson? Okay.
Starting Wednesday.
Starting Wednesday, tomorrow, yes.
Any other
Okay.
questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of making the appointments for 2018 for county board appointments to boards and committees, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All voting aye. Let's see here. Next item is 6.5, adopt resolution for commissioner salaries. I would open that to the board. We have 3 resolutions. The first is no increase. Resolution B is for a 2.5% increase. And resolution 3 is to increase the average of comparable counties, 2 comparable counties. Motion? Commissioner Olson?
You know, this item and the 4 elected have been. I've received a lot of calls, a lot of talk about towns, especially after the articles in the local papers. So I'm going to just make a motion, resolution A, no increase.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any questions? Commissioner
Yes.
Ward?
Yeah, just, this is public knowledge that we compare ourselves to a number of other counties, and I think this is the first time we've ever pulled up the actual dollars that other commissioners are paid, rise in their tax base and everything. We're right in line with that type of thing. So when our other electeds chose a different path to go down, it's a little disheartening that they chose that path. But it was interesting to see the figures, in writing.
Did you second that? Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to adopt Resolution A, which is the status quo. Any questions? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. The next item is 6.6, discuss and provide direction regarding the cooperative agreement with the City of Goodview for County Road 129 project. Mr. Mateka, did you have anything you'd like to say?
No, we're actually, you want me to-
Please.
yes, I'm sorry. Good evening. We're just here because County Engineer Dave Kramer indicated that there might be some discussion concerning this topic tonight and on your agenda, so we're just here to answer any particular questions. Just as a point of clarification, I guess, is that the Goodview City Council did give the go-ahead for our city engineer to start drawing up specs and plans to install water and sewer in County Road 129, basically because of the concept that this would be the most appropriate time to do it when the road is under construction. So that's just an update from the Goodview City Council.
Commissioner Ward.
With that being said, what is the City of Goodview's policy in regards to annexation?
We will not annex anybody unless they come in and approach us.
If they want water and sewer off these lines, then is it mandatory that they become annexed?
Yes, because of our agreement, our sewer agreement with the city of Winona, that we can only serve people within our jurisdiction.
Okay.
I have a question. So with those discussions about putting in the utilities, was there any discussion about the city of Goodview taking jurisdiction back for 129?
The city council's position on that has not changed since we talked earlier this year. I believe that was back in March, and that there is no desire to take the road.
Yeah, and there was really extensive discussion regarding utilities and how this would affect Hillsdale, what our responsibilities would be. One of the concerns I would have, I guess, is
Excuse me.
should we go down the path of putting in utilities now, after we've kind of already made the agreements that we've made? What happens if the utilities need service and we've got a new road in and the road needs to be tore up for the utilities? Are you going to assume that's our expense or is that your expense? I kind of feel like whoever has the utilities should have the responsibility in jurisdiction of the road.
My response to that would be that if there is an issue with either the water or the sewer line, that because we would own the water and sewer line, that would be our responsibility.
But if it tears up the pavement and it needs the road tore up and it's our road, you're gonna take on all those responsibilities too?
I think that's no different than some of the projects that we've already incurred, where we've had to cross and go under County Road 32 to serve an area. So technically, County 32, which is our 6th Street, that has been torn up. In fact, there's still an issue with concerning a 2014 project with that. We have incurred that. We have assumed that cost, and we would continue to assume that cost because the road reconstruction is related to the utility line.
Well, maybe if I could just ask a question of you, Mr. Kramer. So we know that the water and sewer will be put in as part of the construction, so we're going to have a new road. But should there be opportunities for properties to tap into that line, they would have the responsibility to bring the road back up to the condition it was in before breaking pavement, correct?
Well, ideally, as part of those extensions, they would try to anticipate where those service lines would be needed and put them in so you don't have to tear up the road. Invariably, there's going to be a situation where you didn't guess right, so you have to tear up the road to get in there to make a connection. In that case, there's going to be a patch. We would require the patch to be, of similar structure, but regardless of that, there's going to be a patch.
So what you're envisioning then is with the plans and specs that the city would put forward, they'd already have those extensions put in as part of the initial construction. Is that correct, Mr. Mateka?
Yes, it is. In our engineering estimates that we've already obtained, and they're just clearly estimates, we're planning, I believe it's for 10 to 12 services where we would stub those services already to the property line.
Okay.
So thus, if John Smith wanted to hook up 3 years from now, they're not digging up the road, they're getting to the property line.
Okay. I would ask you, Mr. Kramer, do you feel as though we have to have an agreement in effect to lay that out, that any need for a new tap into the line is going to be at the expense of the city, and the road has to be bought back to?
That's not necessary. That's a standard practice.
Okay.
I mean, we have, county roads with city utilities under them in every municipality. Perhaps most municipalities where we have county roads, that's just a normal order of business that if you're putting in a utility, you're responsible to restore.
Yeah, okay. Good enough. Thank you. Mr. Olson.
So, is that going to delay the project at all, at any expense to the?
Well, certainly doing the project without the utility or doing the project with utilities, it adds, construction that would potentially extend the time frame of the project. if you get a contractor and they put, resources toward it, there's no reason they can't still get it done in one construction season.
As far as the paving application though, going around manholes and stop boxes, is that an added expense?
It's minimal.
Okay.
Commissioner Ward.
Commissioner Olson, time is money, so I think by doing this, it's going to take more time, and a contractor will ask for more money. I really have issues now with the city of Goodview coming back and saying they want to do this because of the annexation issue. I haven't had an opportunity to hear from both Hillsdale and Rolling Stone Township what their thoughts are, because with this, and people will ask for services because they don't want to maintain their own. How many, we don't know, but that will erode both Rolling Stone and Hillsdale Township. It'll erode their tax base, and I guess I am strongly leaning to making Goodview take over the road if they want to do this. But I haven't had an opportunity to talk to, we have a township officer meeting tomorrow night, and I think represented, right, correct, yes. Commissioner Jacob, tomorrow night? We'll have an opportunity to see people from both those townships and get a sense of what their feelings are in regards to this. I've seen too many times where cities start annexing out into the townships and it hurts townships.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah. It does feel like, in the interest of full transparency to the community, that we did bring up specifically during this process, would Goodview want to put utilities in? And the answer was no. And so the community, when they were weighing in on this, Rolling Stone and Hillsdale, they were led to believe that that was not the case. So,
If I could just interject something. In my conversations throughout this process with the city, I don't recall that there was a no decision on the utilities. There was, I guess my understanding was that was an open issue. It wasn't decided. I think, they made a decision. We do not want to take the road. We would like the road to be improved, but that the county continued to maintain the road. The question of whether or not they wanted to extend city utilities, as I recall or understood it, was left as an open issue.
Commissioner Professor.
Yeah, that's my recollection also from attending different public meetings and from the council meetings at the city of Goodview. And part of it was money. They wanted to find out if they had money to do this, and, so they did find that out, obviously. So that's my recollection. Yeah, as far as I know, there never was a no vote. It never was closed. It was always open.
Commissioner Olson.
So our task tonight is discuss, approve, provide direction? Or do you want to, I've always thought that Goodview should take the road, but they don't want it. But I think that putting the utilities in there is the right thing to do. And I think that makes for a better project. And it's doing it the right way. So I would certainly approve of it, make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Barring any,
I would ask that we table it till we have an opportunity to talk to our townships that this affects. We haven't had, I don't even know if they knew the meeting was tonight or if this was on the agenda. I seriously doubt that they were aware of it. They did weigh in when we had the initial discussions. We had some township people at the public hearing, and they expressed strongly that the county keep it, but this whole annexation issue wasn't before them at all. So I would ask to table it till we talk to the townships and get a true feeling.
I'd second that.
if you withdraw, was yours an official motion?
Well, I don't see this as
Well,
a,
This isn't an annexation issue.
It is an annexation issue in my mind.
Table.
So is seconding motion, I mean, a motion to table debatable?
No, discussion ends on the table.
And that would include Mr. Olson's motion? Is not discussable until the matter of the,
Hasn't been seconded.
mine wasn't
I
seconded.
seconded
Oh,
it.
you,
yeah, she did second it, yeah. So, Ms. Nuttall,
The first thing that I heard was the motion to approve by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kovesi.
Right.
And then we had the discussion about tabling, and
My
then
bad ear, I didn't hear a
I'm
second.
sorry, I seconded it.
there was the motion to table.
and a second to table. And where do you want us to go with that there?
We get to vote on the.
Well, I would ask the first motion if they don't want to consider the township's opinion.
I don't look at this as an annexation issue. I think that if I lived on that road and I had the opportunity to hook into a municipal service, but the only way I could do that was by annexing my property, then that is up to me as an individual property owner, not as,
But it erodes the property tax base of that township. You take 10 houses at, we got these houses up at, $200,000. That's a lot of tax base you're taking away, and a township hasn't even had a chance to weigh in on the.
Mr. Matejka has been waiting patiently to.
No, that's fine. Concerning the annexation, once again, to readdress, if John Smith wants to come in, they approach us, we look to see if it's doable, and if it is doable, in this case, if we did put the utilities in and the stub is there, it's obviously doable, annexation does take place. However, if I may say that since my time with the city, which is 11 years, any annexations concerning Rolling Stone Township property, and that's really the only township that we have dealt with in my 11 years, we have an agreement, it's actually an unwritten agreement, that we compensate the township $400 right away for any loss tax revenue concerning that particular property. And the township has always signed off on that. We have never had an issue concerning that. Now, if something happened with Hillsdale Township, I would assume that we would try to enter into that sort of agreement with them also.
That's just a one-time $400 here, take this.
$400 payment.
Go away?
Yes. But when you think of, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but, one particular parcel and the lost revenue of just from the township, I'm not sure, how that equates out, but it is a one-time payment. So they are getting something, losing that
Short-
parcel.
Yeah, a short-term payment.
Please stay there at the,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree completely with Greg, or Commissioner Olson's position on, makes sense to do it when the road is being put in. And I believe what Mr. Matejka's, the relationship between Goodview and Rolling Stone and Hillsdale, but I would feel even better if we had Rolling Stone and Hillsdale here to say, yeah, we're all in agreement. I'd like to support this request, but I can't without knowing that my townships that are directly affected, that I represent, without them being here to say, yeah, we're all on the same page. So I'd like to support it, but I still would like to table it until the community is made fully aware of what we're intending to do.
Oh, Commissioner Olson.
I would still just think I don't think you should hold a property owner hostage to what the township wants. If they want to hook in, I think that's their right and their privilege to do that and ask to be annexed. So I don't see this as ask permission of the king if they can go to Goodview. But
Commissioner Kovesi.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Olson. I don't see this as an annexation issue, particularly the way the city of Goodview has explained their positions on that. there have been properties, I know I've been at city council meetings, and there have been properties along Minnesota City that have bought into Goodview sewer and water, and there have been properties that have turned it down.
We have had cases where people have come to us requesting help. We look into it. We work with the city engineer. Dave Schultz, Director of Public Works, works with our engineer. If it's possible and it's at a relatively reasonable cost, we try to accommodate them.
Yeah. There was
But there was also one in particular where they needed water and sewer. We looked into it. Financially, it wasn't doable, and we said no. So in this particular case, with putting utilities in County Road 129, it's basically, somewhat of an insurance policy for those particular residents that if their water fails, if their sewer septic fails, they can hook up if they so choose.
Commissioner Jacob?
I think that all makes perfect sense. But given where things are at in Dresbach, I think there's facets of it that we might not be seeing. And I don't see where the project isn't until next summer to table it one meeting and make sure that all the parties are aware of what we're wanting to do. I feel like that's the best service in interest of the transparency to the community.
Commissioner Ward?
As Commissioner Jacob said, I'm dealing with annexations on the other end of the district. Dresbach is trying to do a community sewer project, and they were trying to do a straight line to La Crescent, but La Crescent will have nothing to do with it without annexation. That's a 4-mile gap between La Crescent and the city and the township of Dresbach. So, but with annexation, and again, I have very strong feelings about townships and annexation issues. I was not around when the Winona Township disappeared, but I still hear bad feelings over when Winona Township disappeared. But there's also responsibilities with annexation. So if you did annex, and unfortunately it would probably be, to start with, it would be haphazard. It wouldn't be a continuous road. You said as people wanted to. So what's the responsibilities of the city of Goodview to those residents if they're annexed, like fire, police, road, service, that type of thing?
They would be a member of the city of Goodview receiving those services unless there is an agreement, hypothetically, between our police department and the sheriff's department, or something like that. But technically, they are the city of Goodview. And so they would abide by our ordinances. They would, I guess they would be treated just like I would be treated, who lives on 45th Avenue, smack dab in the middle of Goodview.
Right. So there would be a certain amount of responsibilities from the city of Goodview to provide to those residents. And then there also would be, for those residents, they would have to comply to the city of Goodview's, as you said, all their ordinances and everything, which might be in great contrast to what the township has. We don't know. We haven't done any work on that or anything. No. But again, I strongly would plea that you allow us to talk to the townships. I think it's only right because they have not been heard. As I said earlier, I don't even think they know this is being discussed.
Commissioner Jacob?
So have you discussed this with City of Goodview, both fire and police? Because I know they weighed in back during the public debates that they were concerned about having to take on any responsibilities there.
Our police and fire did?
Yeah.
In the public debates?
Well, if it were that you were to take over responsibility of 129, when those initial discussions were taking place, there was a concern at that time.
Oh, the whole road?
Yeah.
Yes.
So have you talked to them about taking over some?
No.
Residences.
Okay.
No, residences, not road.
Yeah.
Well, but I think he was referencing
But aren't you saying
earlier when the thought process of you giving us, or us taking over all of 129, that's when our police and fire did comment on that.
And then also with this, I'll call it kind of leapfrog, one house might decide they want city water sewer, the next house might not. So some of those would be the responsibility of one fire and police, and the next one would not be, and then the community has, those departments need to know which houses they're responsible for?
And that's where I meant that they would be working with dispatch to reference those particular parcels.
But you haven't.
Unless there's an understanding that, because we have that situation now out on Winona Road, I'll reference towards the Minnesota City Bus Barn. That part of Winona Road, there's a couple properties along there that are surrounded by township properties, but they're technically in the city of Goodview because they annexed because they needed services, and we were able to provide that. So I believe our police department has worked with dispatch and with the sheriff's office on how to respond to calls in that area.
So once they are annexed, so then they become responsibility of a different fire and,
Yes, I've actually written some letters from property owner, requested from property owners for insurance purposes to say that they are now served by the city of Goodview and that there is water readily available to them.
it seems like it would be one more reason to table the request, because your fire and law enforcement had previously stated they did not want any more responsibility, and you said you have not talked to them yet.
No.
I think it would be good to find out whether they want to support additional homes.
Under other annexations that have gone through, it is not, they are aware of them, because those annexation agreements have to be approved by our city council, and our police is at every single city council meeting, so they are aware.
They publicly spoke at these other meetings that it was a reason why they did not want the road jurisdiction to go from Winona County to Goodview. So they took a position publicly before that they don't want that responsibility. And now we haven't talked to them, and we're going to make a decision that's going to affect them.
And they are a department within the city, so I would assume that they will honor what the city council, a directive from the city council. So if I may, you're asking to talk to our police and fire when earlier you were talking about talking to the township. So I'm a little confused now.
I think all of them. Yeah, absolutely the townships. And now I'm saying the city police and fire too, because they took a position publicly before that they did not want the responsibility of the addition of the properties that would go along with jurisdiction of 129 going from Winona County to Goodview. So, I mean, yeah, I think all four of them should be a part of the process.
And I guess what I'm saying is that they are departments of the city, and they will honor and go forth with whatever directive they get from the city council. So,
Has
if
the
you want to talk to them,
Has the city council specifically discussed that? If these properties are annexed into Goodview, then who would be responsible for fire and emergency services? Has the city council discussed that?
not at a meeting, no.
I guess what I might
So I'm
mention.
belaboring it, I'm sorry. but-
Sure. No, what I wanted to mention too is I don't know that we really have the right to get into their operational issues and what their directives are with their own departments. I guess what I'm thinking is if they decide that they're going to provide services to property A, B, and F, they'll provide services to A, B, and F. They're entitled to the services because they're members of that community now, so, and would be paying Goodview taxes as well. Commissioner Vesey?
That's kind of what I was going to say. I believe they were present at the discussion on the sewer, on the utilities being
Our police
provided by the
were
city.
at that meeting, and we did have representatives of a fire department at that meeting, yes.
May I know, or? Okay. As I'm thinking about it, it's, And I thought about it long and hard what the best way to go is. What I would hate to see is for us to construct the road, and then later on, there's a determination that there are some failures that have to be addressed through water and sewer. And we're then going to go out and just tear up the road completely to allow Goodview then to provide service to those residents. My sense is that Goodview has probably a good idea as to what they're anticipating down the road, although we may not. But I'd be kind of hard pressed to deny, the opportunity to put sewer and water in there while we're doing the construction. I think it just makes sense to do that without having to give it consideration at a later date when there's no sewer and water there and they need it. Commissioner Ward.
Well, we're not denying them to put sewer and water. I'm saying if they want to put sewer and water, then they got to take, I'm willing to negotiate, then they take the whole road back, because they're getting a Cadillac of a road when I've got county residents driving around on AMC, Pacer roads. They're far outdated and substandard. So if they want to improve their neighborhood, which it will become the city, in my opinion, will become the city of Goodview through annexation, because people need to upgrade sewer and water, which is a given, not against that. But then that's Goodview take over the road.
Yeah, but my sense is that we've already agreed that we were going to
well, and I guess
upgrade the
I
road.
I don't remember, again, we all remember conversations differently. I don't ever remember I thought the sewer and water was dead. I thought they told us no, they weren't interested in doing it. I didn't see it as still an open issue. Now, I did not have direct contact, but I attended the public meeting and the last discussion we had. So again, if they're going to take the tax base away from the township and everything, then step up and take the road over too, once you got a Cadillac road.
Commissioner Jacob.
I agree with all the discussion about makes perfect sense, and I want to support it. If we can wait one meeting to do that, I will vote to support it. But I would like to, I also represent not just parts of Goodview, but parts of Minnesota City, parts of all Hillsdale and Rolling Stone Township. So if it impacts them in any way, I think I'd be doing a disservice to vote yes on this tonight. But I certainly can in a week or two, or at one of our next meetings. Just as long as they've been noticed, they're aware of what's going on and how it would affect their property and their townships.
Commissioner Olson.
So, I got a couple different quandaries going on. One of them would be the ownership of the road, and the other would be the putting utilities in the road, which has nothing to do with annexation. It just makes it possible if the property owner wants it. And I would be hard pressed to have the township officer in front of us saying that we don't want these people we don't want to lose this property, therefore we're not going to let them hook to the water and sewer. We would still allow that to happen. And if the property owner decides that they need the water and sewer, that they will be annexed, then I would not deny them that. So I just think this is the right way to go. And I know with bidding and stuff, road projects are probably not, they're time sensitive to get the projects out there. So I would just assume that let's call the question, and if you want to vote down my motion, then.
Mr. Jacob was already in the queue.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but the best way to build good relationships, even between Goodview and Rolling Stone and Hillsdale, is to make sure they're aware, make sure everyone's on the same page, and not just say we're going to, because we think we know what they would answer, we're going to vote on it tonight. That would be offensive, I believe, to the others involved. And I think we can probably get them on board, but we're going to offend them more by just ramming it through tonight than if we.
Administrator Mateka.
Concerning the actual process, I referenced that we receive a letter from the property owner the first thing I do with that letter is I make the township aware. And I let them aware that Mr. John Smith, this address, has requested annexation to come into to the city of Goodview for utility services. So there is communication between the city and the township immediately upon receiving the request for annexation.
I would ask one question, and I maybe ask it of anybody that can answer it. Are the townships aware that we're dealing with this issue tonight?
I don't think so.
Haven't heard anything.
Mr. Mateka, would you be familiar with whether they were familiar, Mr. somebody?
No.
We did not specifically notify them. I mean, obviously, it's publicly posted, but it wasn't brought to their attention specifically.
Okay.
I was surprised to see it on the agenda.
Commissioner Pavesi?
This has not been on the agenda for the township officers' meetings. I guess in a way, we're also asking that Mr. Mateka and Goodview City people come to the meeting tomorrow night in case there are questions. Is that what you're asking, Commissioner Jacob? By saying we want to talk it over with the township people tomorrow? I mean, we don't have the information. It's the city of Goodview, really.
Specifically, Hillsdale and Rolling Stone. I believe that it impacts them, maybe possibly in ways that we're not seeing. I know in La Crescent and Dresbach, it's extremely complex. And for us to claim that we know every facet of that without giving them a fair and even chance to just have it on their agenda, discuss it, know that it's happening and that we're taking action other than kind of what was originally planned, which was there was no plans until this, that utilities were going in.
Yeah, I'm getting confused now, though. Have it on the agenda for the township officers' meetings or for Hillsdale and Rolling Stone Township? Because they might have different timelines, which would affect some of the timelines we're dealing with in terms of bids. And I don't know when the next Rolling Stone Township meeting or Hillsdale Township meeting is. I know the township officers are meeting tomorrow night.
Steve will pull it up. They meet monthly.
And in a way, we are asking the city of Goodview to attend that meeting so that they can be present for questions that we can't answer.
Which meeting?
The township officers meeting.
Well, but I think you're only dealing with two townships, and I think you can, it's probably best to limit it to the two townships at hand, if that seems reasonable. But I think the issue is, one, they need to be officially notified that we're preparing to take some action and what actions we're considering taking, because I'm not sure that they're aware of either one of those or that we're doing it tonight. I mean, I don't have a problem waiting a meeting, but I think it would be advantageous for us to agree that they should be notified and that we should ask for a response as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's
From Rolling Stone and Hillsdale Township.
Yeah.
Do they have meetings scheduled for January? Do you know, Steve? Or Commissioner Jacob, excuse me.
yes, their meetings for January will be, both of them will meet January 8th.
And when is our next board meeting after that?
9th.
9th.
Oh, that's
9th
good
and
timing.
23rd. 9th and 23rd.
Oh, it could be on our agenda for the 9th.
Put a placeholder in it
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ward and then Olson.
I have a question for Mr. Mateka. So you are planning, I'm looking at the map of 129. So you're planning on putting water and sewer along that whole section off of 61 to 61?
I'm going to defer to Dave.
The water is mostly there already.
Okay, and,
Mostly sewer that way.
okay, go all the way from
And
the,
I think we have chunks in there now, and we just need the tiles again.
Okay, so to make this, because I know earlier, it's always, what's the cost effective? How many homes do you anticipate are in that section that predominantly is Rolling Stone? How many residents are there that you would anticipate if everybody along that route annexed in?
And that's where I mentioned earlier that in our engineering plans, we're looking at 10 to, I don't have the specific number, but 10 to 12 stubs, which would mean 10 to 12 properties.
Homes. Okay, properties. Thank you.
We could just talk about schedule a little bit. In order to get good bids, we need to be opening bids in March, which means we need to be advertising in February. If we're waiting until January to make a decision, do we start design on sewer and water? We're basically at a point where we're potentially kicking the project out to 2019, which isn't the end of the world, but it's just, I mean, we are frankly in crunch time to get good bids for this project so that the contractor will have the entire construction season to build it, which also facilitates better bids. So if we delay a decision a couple months and still try to do it in 2018, we're potentially increasing our cost.
Commissioner Olson?
We're not saying we're delaying it a couple months.
Again, I don't see any difference. I mean, and I respect the township. I respect that position, but we're talking about putting utilities under a road that is going to be constructed. The annexation issue is a secondary issue, and before us is putting utilities under a road that's time sensitive. I think that's the right thing to do, which we all agree on. It is probably the right thing to do, but I don't see us denying that happening because the townships are opposed. I would not deny it.
Commissioner Jacob? Sorry.
At road and bridge meetings, this is maybe just a comment towards Engineer Kramer. We've discussed about putting out for bids in the past, and typically you've said around Christmas, not much is happening. Starting into January, yeah, that's kind of the downtime for many of these construction crews, and they'll start looking at bids. So I don't see, we're before Christmas right now. I think we can have a decision and still get the approvals that Goodview's looking for and still keep this project on schedule.
Ready to vote?
Well, I want to let us look at our process a little bit. I don't want to get to a meeting and all of a sudden we don't have the information that we need. I mean, it's going to be essential, I think, that we'll lay this out how we want it and so that we can delay this to a time certain, if that makes sense. I don't want to push Mr. Kramer's schedule, but it's crunch time for him. I want to be fair, so.
But
Commissioner Jacob.
if we make a decision on January 9th, how much action is going to happen between now and January 9th? What's the plan?
The City of Goodview's consulting engineer working on the sewer and water plans for that month is a big part of a schedule in order to get that task completed. If the decision isn't made until then, and we're, you know, it's really short-circuiting the time frame. There's multiple pieces that have to fit together. Our staff is designing the plan. We've got storm sewer that's going to go in there. The sewer and water need to, on the plan, be deconflicted with the sewer and water need to be deconflicted with the storm sewer. We've got, different engineers designing that, so that's kind of a back and forth iteration. It doesn't happen overnight. We literally at crunch time to deliver this with a March bid opening right now. If we delay a month, then we're pushing it off into, April, May timeframe where we can expect that our bids, the pencils won't be as sharp for the contractors, for the bidders.
Commissioner Jacob.
Unfortunately, we are government and we move at the speed of government. We gave this approval a long time ago, and if this could have come before us 6 months ago. The fact that it came at this last minute, I don't feel good about denying my townships the right to know about it because the decision wasn't made 6 months ago or brought forward 6 months ago.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Ward.
I would agree with Commissioner Jacob. This was kind of, obviously it must have been being worked on in-house and none of us knew what the discussions were. And again, I strongly support my townships. They need to know. For us not to even let them know, I think is a big disservice. So, and we're not asking for a long period of time. We could have a decision by the 9th, we're saying, December, so. January 9th. I think we could have a decision. And I'm not crazy about this project to start with because I think it's way overbuilt for what we use county, property tax dollars for to build our roads. This, again, I said it's a Cadillac road. We need to do it right. But to not let the townships weigh in is not fair.
Question, Mr. Mateka. Are you familiar with any septic failures in the areas that we're talking about?
I believe in informal discussion, there have been one or two individuals who have expressed interest, but just informally. I have had a couple.
Not necessarily based on failure?
No,
or, okay.
No, not necessarily based on failure. I've had one individual who's in that 10 to 12 who says it'll be when hell freezes over that they hook up to the city of Goodville.
Sure, okay.
So.
Okay. So where is the responsibility going to lie for advising and soliciting response for our meeting in January?
I think Commissioner Jacob represents those two townships.
Yeah.
I think he's more than willing to take that on.
So they should be putting forth to us something official.
We should notify them of exactly, we should have administration reach out to them so they know what we're intending to do, what we're trying to accomplish, and that they'll have their January meetings to formally discuss it. And doesn't mean that the townships are going to, get whatever they want, but in the interest of having good relationships between neighboring communities, that just is the right thing to do.
Well, and on that basis, I will support the idea of going until January 9th. I would say, however, too, though, that I'm inclined to approve the request of Goodview, barring something rather substantial, on the basis that, one, we need to get the project moving. Two, it makes sense if we're doing a reconstruction to have it done at the time of the reconstruction. But that would, the other thing I do feel bad about is that we're sitting here and it doesn't appear anyone's notified the two townships. And from a transparency basis, I think that that's pretty flawed. And that's a basis for my considering going to January 9th. So, anyone wish to make a motion?
I think we got to deal with the motion that's on the table.
Which is?
And then there's two motions on the table.
Okay.
The motion.
I'm going to switch chairs with you.
I think you have to vote on the original motion, and then the motion to table.
Well, we had a motion to table, but that
Motion to
wasn't
table
debatable, and we
doesn't
moved
get a
way
vote.
past that, so.
No, you had two motions.
Motion to approve was the first one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I made that seconded by Commissioner Kvesi.
But it's still, they both still require votes, even though they're not debatable, or the one's not debatable.
Which one we did first? The motion to approve
Yeah.
Yeah, I
by
think that has-
Commissioner Olson and then Kavesi.
Yeah.
All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. The motion to table, should we assume that that would be until January 9th?
We can
Oh,
table
take-
to a specific date, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, January 9th.
So with the maker and seconder of that motion,
Accept
Motion.
that
accept
amendment.
that? amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this until the,
I have a point of order. If we take a motion to lay on the table, we're setting aside the business temporarily. If we take a motion to postpone, we can set a certain time.
yeah, we're delaying until a time certain,
Okay, so we're really having a motion to postpone
until
until a certain
January
time.
9th.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, sorry.
You bet. Okay. So that's our motion to have it on the agenda with meaningful communications from the folks in Hillsdale and Rolling Stone Township. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. It is delayed until January 9th. And again, I'd like to say that the only reason I'm considering delay on that is that I would not be pleased to have folks in those two townships read about this tomorrow morning, not having known anything about it going into this meeting, so. Okay. Next item is 6.7, discuss and obtain feedback and to approve moving to a public hearing for proposed changes to the Winona County zoning ordinance. Are we wishing to open that hearing tonight? Is that correct, Ms. Qualley?
I think to set.
Setting a public hearing.
Set a date.
Very good. Take Ms. Qualley, please.
There's a bank of lights we can dim back here.
Behind you.
I don't know which ones to do.
I don't know. It's good.
Well, let's find out.
Now, let's find out. Oh,
Oh, there we go.
No, we want these dimmed over the.
Now, no napping, everyone, just because we dim the lights a little bit. Just thought a change of pace might be useful here, too. Well, I guess we'll need some, yeah. All right.
Good, thank you.
So as requested by the board for 2017 updating, the packet tonight includes, as you can read yourselves, about half of those submitted tonight. And part of that is because I've worked just a little over half a year, so we are a bit behind, and I do apologize to the board for that, but we'll try to rectify that as quickly as possible. So I'll run you through the list here. Those in the larger typeface, along with the bold print in blue, are the ones that have been reviewed by the Planning Commission and sent along for your perusal, and we'll go through them. You have both a redlined copy and a clean copy in your packet. Anything else that's in the dark writing that you really can't see there is for the next round, such as an IUP and other items, the interim use permit, which is in the middle of the screen, which we are working on rapidly, including the solar ordinance that will come before the Planning Commission shortly. The largest change would be updating the process and procedures for the comprehensive plan and official controls. And there's a flow chart about that I'll have on the screen shortly. Some of them are very minor, including addition of mailing procedures for sending proper notifications for a variance. General enforcement language for after-the-fact fees. We're trying to get things out of ordinances and into the fee schedule where possible to avoid having to go through the expense to the public and the county for frequent modifications of the zoning ordinance. So we're trying to do that to be prudent. And also to clarify enforcement procedures for violations of the zoning code so that we can decrease carryover cases and multiple complaints about the same property and just kind of keep things moving a bit. So this is the flow chart for the zoning amendment part of things. It basically is to help us with maintaining consistency with Minnesota Statute 394 for governing of counties, and also to move things through the written reports, the public hearings, and Planning Commission requirements and recommendations to the board. So that flow chart is just basically what, in physical form, we're saying in written form in your packet. Adding procedures for suspending or revoking non-compliant CUPs or some that are inactive is one. And then adding a new definition about what a minor modification to a feedlot might be, and for changes that don't affect animal units, and also to then later in the text, in the feedlot section, reflect the fact that these minor modifications may not or should not then need a CUP. The reason for this is to avoid the expense to an operator that perhaps in between the cycle of inspections, but certainly with the knowledge of the feedlot operator, make improvements to a liner that may be leaking, or to install sand separation lanes that would increase the holding capacity of a manure storage unit. So the feedlot permit would still be required. This will still be inspected. It's just to eliminate the CUP part of it and streamline that process just a little bit. And that's based on the recommendations of our feedlot officer. And then on the last bolded one, clarification of the CD2 zoning district. This was just a housekeeping change that was kind of a carryover from something that was requested by the township in that area. So we can go through these if you have questions, or we can go through them in the order that you have them, which starts with a definition from Chapter 4.2. Whoever the board would like.
Having said on the planning commission, I personally don't need to go through them again. I supported them at the planning commission level and would support them going through to the public hearing process.
So what, were there meeting minutes on the discussion of these amendments?
Yes, all of the planning commission meeting minutes are available on the website under meeting minutes by date. And that process started in June.
Okay, so what, so I can look at, I always like to hear the discussion because there's some changes here. So can you tell me, because I don't think they were included in our packet. Maybe I missed them?
We approved the minutes.
Of the planning commission, but wasn't this was this a special meeting?
No.
Or was it just within all your meetings that you've had? You've kind of staggered them through.
Commissioner Ward, to answer your question specifically, these have been ongoing as part of the planning commission meeting minutes that you have received in the packet from June through very recently.
Yeah, so
as we've been.
There isn't one where you can go where there was all the discussion. It's within.
I do recall from the minutes that I did read, though, that these are considered non-controversial and they were approved unanimously.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right. Okay.
While everyone's contemplating that, thank you for your patience while the Planning and Environmental Services technical group works through the next round to try to achieve 2017 list of cleanups from you folks as quickly as possible. I'm sure that there will be some others that you have encountered or that our new chair in 2018 would like us to work on. So that might be something else to be percolating in the background for our sort of clean up what you asked us to do and what would you like us to do next kind of list.
Commissioner Jacobs.
So do you want a consensus to move this forward, or do you want a motion to move this to a public hearing?
We would like to move to a public hearing if the board does so approve.
Well, I'll make the motion to move these items to a public hearing.
I'll second, because we still get the public hearing, we hear from the public, and we still have, I apologize, we received a huge packet this time, and this is, there's a lot in here. Where are the zingers in here? I don't know. I do know that it was unanimously and it was non-controversial, but there always seems to be a little twist or turn when you're talking zoning, and Ms. Cawley's smiling. She knows there's zingers in her profession. So we can have a public hearing, and then that gives us more time to dissolve this and hear from the public if there's any.
Commissioner Kibesi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I did hear from a member of the public who, for some reason, had missed the previous announcements of when they could make public comments or whatever. And I encouraged him to keep following the procedure, and he could make comments at this time to the planning department, and to let him know when the public hearing would be set, because that would be a formal time for additional public comments. So,
And we already did have a public hearing at the
Right.
planning commission
At the
level.
planning commission level.
So that's generally when these are,
yeah,
if there's something controversial, when it's vetted. So, and we didn't have a single community member present at.
and there were no written comments admitted. That's why I encouraged him just to, if he really wanted to do some written comments, and then to be aware that the public hearing would be set.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to move the amendments to public hearing. Any questions?
We need to
concerns?
set the date, or are we just,
It would be per their ability to move it forward to a public hearing, correct?
Whatever would allow for providing notice under the rules and then
Right.
get it onto an agenda.
Right. So we'd be kind of at the mercy of your schedule to make sure notice is appropriate and such, okay? Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries with all voting aye. Mr. Fritz, you had one item?
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate the County Safety Committee and the employees on the award that MCIT, our insurance carrier, gave to the county at the AMC conference for workers' comp, the lack of workers' comp injuries.
Super. Commissioner Ward?
Just with the recently having attended, Commissioner Jacob, Commissioner Kavesi, and myself attended AMC. There was a lot of information there, and I'm sure each of us will be bringing some platform from our committee's policy platforms. And maybe we could have some discussion prior. We could use the AMC platform to discuss prior to our meeting with the legislators, so that we're unified in what we're going to ask them for, or say are our key issues, some of our key issues. So I would ask for maybe a placeholder in one of it'd have to be the first or second meeting in January to do maybe just a short working session or something before the legislators.
Very good.
If everybody's agreeable to that. Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, questions? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So,
Got a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.